In 1957, a Chevrolet rolled off the line in Flint, Michigan, roughly every 60 seconds. The factory ran 3 shifts. The paint shop hissed 24 hours a day. Workers installed chrome trim with hands that had memorized the motion. By the end of the model year, Chevrolet had built more than 1.5 million cars and lost the sales crown to Ford for the first time in years. Now hold that fact, because here is the irony that defines this whole story. The car that supposedly failed in 1957 became the most loved American car of all time. Inside the assembly plant that built the icon of the chrome age and the strange industrial accident that turned a backup plan into a legend. To understand the 1957 Bel Air, you have to understand a plan that was already in trouble. It is 1955. Chevrolet has just launched what designers and engineers consider one of the most important model years in its history. The all-new Tri-5 generation, the first fully redesigned Chevy since the war. New body, new chassis, and, as covered in our first episode, the brand-new small-block V8, Ed Cole's gamble that would become the most produced engine in history. The 1955 Chevrolet is a hit. The 1956 is a refined success. And inside GM's product planning offices, the schedule for 1957 calls for the next big move. Another all-new Chevrolet, a completely fresh body designed to keep the momentum running. That car did not arrive on time. The new 1957 body, what would eventually appear as the 1958 Chevrolet, got pushed back by a year. There are competing explanations historians have wrestled with for decades: tooling delays, engineering reworks, internal politics, supply problems on key body parts. The exact mix of causes still gets argued about today, but the consequence is what matters. With months to go before the model year, Chevrolet's designers were told to take the existing 1956 body and make it look new. Same basic shell, same fundamental tooling, one more year with a facelift. Inside the styling studios in Detroit, the engineers groaned. Outside, in the showrooms, America was about to receive a small miracle disguised as a holding action. Here is where Chevrolet's designers, under the legendary GM design boss Harley Earl, pulled off one of the great recoveries in automotive history. If they could not change the body, they would change everything attached to it. The front end was completely redesigned, lower and wider, with a new grille and quad headlights replacing the previous singles. Massive bumper guards, the famous Dagmars, pushed forward like jet intakes. The hood gained 2 faux louvers in chrome, and the rear, this is the part everyone remembers, sprouted modest tail fins, capped by horizontal taillights set into chrome housings that visually pulled the whole back of the car into motion. The flat sides were broken up by sweeping two-tone paint schemes and gleaming stainless steel trim. The result on paper was a facelift. The result in the metal was a car that looked like it had absorbed the entire optimism of 1957 America. Chrome and steel and atomic-age confidence parked at every curb. 3 trim levels made it down the line. The base 150, plain, fleet, and budget-oriented, surprisingly popular with hot rodders because it was the lightest. The mid-grade 210, the common-sense family Chevrolet. And the top of the heap, the Bel Air, chrome-laden, two-tone with the gold script on the rear fenders and the famous gold anodized grille on the very top variants. The hardtops, the convertibles, and that quirky show stealer, the Nomad station wagon. Every one of them built on the same body, by the same workers, on the same line. And the powertrain options had teeth. The Stovebolt 6 was still around for the budget end, but the small block in its second model year had grown to 283 cubic inches, and at the very top of the Chevrolet engine catalog sat the Ramjet fuel-injected version, rated at 283 horsepower. 1 horsepower per cubic inch. Chevrolet advertised it like a moon landing. The car you could buy at the dealership now matched serious sports cars on a sheet of paper. The plan worked. Showroom traffic in late 1956 was strong. Now the question shifted to the people who had to actually build all of these things. 3 shifts, 3 plants, more than 1 million cars to assemble through the model year. In 1957, Chevrolet production was distributed across multiple GM assembly plants, including Flint, St. Louis, Atlanta, Tarrytown, Janesville, and others, with Flint, Michigan as the historic heart of the operation. Walk the line in late 1956, and here is what the day looks like. A worker punches in for the first shift. The air smells of cutting fluid, hot metal, and stove enamel from the paint shop. Overhead, conveyors clatter constantly, ferrying half-built bodies from one zone to the next. In the body shop, stamped panels, fenders, doors, hoods, those signature quad headlight front clips, arrive from supplier stamping plants and from GM's own Fisher body operations. Welders fix them to the platform structure in a constant storm of sparks. There are no robots here. Every weld is placed by a human hand, hundreds of times per shift, by a worker whose nervous system has memorized the rhythm. From the body shop, the shells travel to paint. This is where the 1957 Bel Air earns its visual identity, because Chevrolet's color palette that year is glorious: tropical turquoise, India ivory, larkspur blue, coral, Sierra gold, onyx black. Many cars are ordered two-toned, which means the paint booths run two coats with masking in between, and the painters work with the patience of jewelers. A single dust speck on a freshly sprayed roof can mean a full respray and a furious supervisor. Then the bodies descend to the final assembly line. This is where the body finally meets the chassis, carrying its drivetrain, most commonly the new 283 V8 or the durable Stovebolt 6. The body drop, as workers called it, was an event of brute industrial choreography. A hoist lowered the painted shell onto the rolling chassis, alignment pins guided it home, and bolt crews swarmed it to make the union permanent. From there came the slow march of installation: dashboards, wiring harnesses, steering columns, instrument clusters, the glass, the chrome. And this is the part that makes the 1957 Chevy uniquely punishing to assemble. Every Bel Air carried more bright trim than almost any model in Chevrolet's history. Chrome strips, side spears, anodized grills, badges, hubcaps, the bumper Dagmars, those tail fin extensions, each piece installed by hand, every clip and bolt placed by a worker who had seconds to get it right before the next body arrived. And the line moved fast, roughly a car a minute across the network. At Flint alone, the plant ran multiple shifts. By the end of the 1957 model year, the entire Chevrolet system would deliver more than 1.5 million cars. Now, the irony at the heart of this whole story. For 2.5 decades, Chevrolet had outsold Ford in nearly every model year, selling more cars than Ford was for Chevrolet, the natural order of the universe. In 1957, that order broke. Ford had its own all-new design for 1957, a longer, lower, completely fresh body that made the facelifted Chevrolet look, in side-by-side dealer comparisons, like exactly what it was: a careful evolution against a clean-sheet redesign. Ford pulled ahead in sales for the calendar year, and edged Chevrolet for the model year as well, depending on which set of accounting boundaries you use. Inside GM, this was treated as something close to a corporate humiliation, and the 1958 model year did not help. The long-delayed all-new Chevrolet finally arrived, and was met with a sharp recession that gutted car sales across the entire industry. The car that had been delayed at the cost of a facelift then launched into the worst market in years. So here, in 1957, you had a strange and now famous situation. A Chevrolet that was technically a holdover hurried through a facelift to fill a one-year hole. A model year in which Chevrolet, by some measures, lost the sales war for the first time in a generation. And a workforce that, by the end of 1957, considered the program a kind of muted disappointment relative to expectations. Then time did its slow, generous work. The 1957 Chevy aged. The 1958s, 59s, and 60s got bigger, heavier, more baroque. Within a few short years, the 57 Bel Air, clean-lined, perfectly proportioned, sized just right, began to look, in retrospect, like the high-water mark of an era that was already washing out. By the mid-1960s, the cars were appearing in movies and album covers as shorthand for 1950s America. By the 70s, they were the centerpiece of the early classic car movement, restored, raced at drag strips, and treated as art objects. By the 80s, surviving 57 Bel Air hardtops and convertibles were selling for prices that would have stunned the workers who built them on a 60-second clock. Today, a properly restored 1957 Bel Air convertible, especially with the fuel-injected 283, sits squarely in the conversation about the most iconic American cars ever produced. The fact that it lost the sales battle in its own model year is now a piece of trivia that even most enthusiasts forget. The car that was supposed to be a one-year stopgap became the eternal portrait of the chrome age. So what is the final ledger on the 1957 Chevrolet? A model year that, in real time, was considered a small corporate defeat, a delayed redesign, second-place finish to an all-new Ford, a workforce that built roughly 1.5 million cars across a network of plants on a brutal clock, a facelift that should have been forgettable, but through the strange chemistry of proportion, chrome, and timing, locked itself into the American imagination in a way that almost no other production car has ever managed. And inside the plants themselves, the 1957 model year stands as a particular kind of monument to the moment American mass production was at its absolute peak of craftsmanship and ambition. Cars hand-trimmed, hand-detailed, hand-touched at every station by workers in their tens of thousands, in factories purpose-built for the work. The chrome shop, the trim shop, the body drop, the paint booths. Every piece of it organized to produce, every 60-odd seconds, another bright sliver of 1957 optimism, ready for a showroom and a buyer, and eventually a place in legend. Harley Earl, the design boss who oversaw the facelift miracle, would retire a year later. His era of styling a spectacle was approaching its sunset, soon to be tempered by smaller, leaner cars and a different sensibility entirely. But before he left, he and his team had stretched a one-year holding action into one of the most beloved car designs of all time. Proof that, in automotive design as in life, the right shape at the right moment can outlive every plan that was supposed to replace it. One delayed redesign, one brilliant facelift, 1 year of frantic production, and one car that quietly outlived every newer Chevy that was supposed to make people forget it. But chrome and quad headlights were only the loudest expression of 50s optimism. While Chevrolet was working overtime in Flint, an entirely different American car company was preparing something stranger, a fleet of cars powered by jet engine-style turbines, capable of running on diesel, kerosene, perfume, or tequila. They were lent free to ordinary American families, and then the company crushed almost every one of them and never fully explained why. That story is next